Before going to Mindanao, I was back in Cebu. I hadn't lived in Cebu for 15 months, and I thought that finding a date there would be easier this time around. I don't know why, times had changed, so it took a while. I was chatting regularly with girls online, but it was a slow process. By the time I left 3 months later, I'd only had 3.5 dates. Half, you ask? The half turned up. I asked her how she felt about meeting me. She said half and half. 10 minutes later, she fucked off.
Hello, good morning, good evening, and welcome to Big World Cinema. Without further ado, we'll continue with what you're here for.
At the end of May this year, I headed to Mindanao. I love Mindanao ladies. Whilst living in Manila, I'd meet very attractive Filipinas, and asking where they're from, many would say from Zamboanga, General Santos, or Butuan. I'd already visited a couple of the big cities in Mindanao and had a little success there. So now I wanted to travel to places that are not very popular, where not many foreigners go, off the beaten track. When I arrived in Mindanao this time and began chatting online with Filipinas, a lot of them would ask the same thing. Now, Filipinas aren't original thinkers. They're suspicious, judgmental, narrow-minded, and without having met you, have already made up their minds that you're up to no good. First, they will not believe you're actually in a remote town or city in Mindanao. Second, they will assume that you've already arranged to meet a Filipina there. Why else would you be there? I was constantly having to respond to the question, why was I here? Plus the assumption that naturally I must have dated a number of Filipinas already. Filipinas are all reading from the same hymn book, have all been identically primed from a very young age how to address lying foreigners, so will all ask exactly the same questions in the same order. So be prepared. Don't make the schoolboy error of saying you've been here for months or years. You'll be batting off jealousy questions for weeks. You've just landed, okay? I said this to one Filipina recently, who asked if I was still suffering from jet lag. When you're asked with every Filipina you chat with the "you must have met loads of Filipinas" question, which is more like a statement actually, it quickly becomes tiring and irritating. On my first stop in Mindanao, chatting to a girl in Dipolog, I said that I'd just arrived from Dumaguete in Negros. "Ah, I see. Meeting girls, for sure." "Snore," I responded. "There's more to life." "What you mean?" "Many Filipinas assume that a single guy is just interested in meeting girls," I said. "Ah, okay. I have other interests too," I said. "Well, I don't judge," she replied. "As if. And I've got 2 legs. Filipinas are the first to judge, even before she's read your profile, if she's not too lazy to actually read it." But things didn't go anywhere with this Dipolog lady, as she wanted serious relationship, and could tell I didn't want serious, as I was being too casual with her. Filipinas don't like casual, they want serious. They need to know if you're going to stay the distance. Be around for her child's next birthday at least. Don't get me wrong, some Filipinas do casual. But the majority will say, "I'm not here for fun," and use the phrase I detest, "date to marry," even at 20 years of age. So things continued along a similar questioning with other Mindanao Filipinas. "Why are you here?" with many exclamation marks. Not question marks, Many Filipinos don't realise when question marks are needed. And also quite accusatory questions as well. Filipinos would assume I was in that area to meet someone I'd arranged to meet. Nobody goes there otherwise. Are you just wanting a girl on the side, away from your Filipino wife and kids? One asked. But after a week in Mindanao, things got better. I had 2 dates as soon as I hit Ozamiz. I thought, great, I finally arrived. But they didn't go very smoothly either. People advise against internet dating as it attracts too many scammers. But this is also true of Filipinos in real life. It was clear that both of these girls didn't really want to spend time with me just for my good looks alone. So in Ozamiz, for the first time in my life, 2 girls wanted to meet me on the same day, which needed good juggling skills. I'm not really cut out to do that, as I've never done that sort of thing before, and not great at deceiving anyone anyway. You may have seen my date with Ricky, the Filipina who slept in a cemetery for many years in her life. She was early 20s now, single mother, obviously. The day before she took me up the mountain, she'd told me it was her birthday and wanted to go drinking. We'd not met yet. Said she'd never met a foreigner before. Asked me what hotel I was staying at. Telling Filipinos you're staying at the Royal Garden Hotel in Ozamiz always seems to get them excited. It's quite a thing, apparently. Asked me what room number I was in. I wasn't sure if she'd be able to get past the security guard on the door or not and into the hotel, so I said I'd meet her outside the hotel entrance. That was 4 p.m. At 4:20 p.m, Ricky texted saying that she was still waiting for the motor. 20 minutes later, I texted her asking where she was. I don't know what the problem with the motor was, but she texted back saying I'm here now, 3 hours later. Now I know Filipinos are bad timekeepers, but that was really taking the biscuit. She'd come to the hotel apparently, but I was eating out at the time, so didn't meet her that day. I wasn't that fussed anyway, as I'd also been speaking to Jenny, who was, you guessed it, early 20s, single mother, obviously. Naturally, Jenny's line of questioning was on par with her fellow Filipinas. I think you have something to meet here, a girl, she said. What do you mean? I replied, not really understanding the English, but did really. What you doing here in Mindanao? Tell me. It's funny how suspicious Filipinas are, I replied. But then she said, what if I come with you there in hotel? Is it okay with you? Sure, if you'd like to, I replied. Over the years I've learnt that this sort of phrase is what the scammer Filipina pros say, making it sound like they're willing to come and meet you immediately and get jiggy with you. Get your hopes up. But there's always a but. Jenny then said she wasn't actually okay for today and sent me photos of what looked like insect bites on her body, and then asked for load for her phone so we could video call, which I ignored. The following day, I was in contact with both Jenny and Ricky. Ricky texted saying she wanted to come to the hotel, as did Jenny. I was unsure who to root for at this time. Both of them had great racks, but both of them also seemed to be on the make. I suggested that Jenny come dine with me later that evening, whilst delaying Ricky coming to the hotel all afternoon as I was editing, and was also annoyed with her for giving me the runaround the previous afternoon. As evening approached, Ricky texted with a sob story saying she was about to be evicted for not paying her rent. Needed 500 pesos. Oh, here we go. Told her to come now and I'll give her the money. Naturally, Ricky was able to get a motor really quickly that day, and I met her across the road by the shopping centre. It was now 7:30 p.m. I was due to meet Jenny for supper, so rushed over the road, gave Ricky her 500 pesos and got back to the hotel double quick without being spotted. Anyway, Jenny texted asking if she could bring a friend with her to dine, which then increased to 2 friends. Now, for those who followed my exploits for a while will know this sort of thing has happened to me before. I have no problem buying a lady supper as long as she's grateful, and if she's too shy to meet me alone, then sure, she can bring a friend along for support. But 2 mates? I'm not buying food for everyone, I said. Who can only buy a food? Only me and my friend? Jenny asked. It's a little rude expecting me to pay for everyone. I'm not a cash boy machine, I said. So I agreed that I'd just pay for Jenny and her friend. When the Filipinas turned up at the restaurant at my hotel that evening, the third one, whose meal I wasn't going to pay for, had suddenly dropped out, strangely enough. Jenny was petite, dressed to show off her assets. On her small frame, her breasts stood out, but the rest of her body looked weird. Big head, dumpy legs, as if she has dwarfism. I'd got off lightly, her only asking to bring 2 friends. She must have left the other 4 down the mine shaft, mining for diamonds. The meal was awkward. Jenny's table manners were sloppy, and her English, as you can tell by her texts, were limited. It was fortunate that her mate, who I'll call Happy, was there, as she spoke decent English and was a nice girl. Once the meal was over, the 2 Filipinas fucked off. But just before, we'd arranged for Jenny to come back to see me alone at the hotel the following day. As the 2 girls left, they both thanked me for the meal, which was a first. From the next day onwards, it became an episode of how much can we fleece the foreigner. It was the day that Ricky took me up the mountain. On the video I published of that day, I actually left out all the gritty details. We'd hired her auntie plus a friend of hers to take us on their motorbikes. When we'd gone halfway, Ricky suddenly realised she knew how to ride a motorbike, so I jumped on the back of hers. Why didn't we just hire the one bike? I asked. I forgot, she said. Forgot how to ride a motorbike? I paid for a meal for the 4 of us, with Ricky wanting to order multiple items on the menu, which I rejected. By the time we returned to Ozamiz, 3 or 4 hours later, I'd already paid out $50. Ricky then wanted me to buy the mobile phone for her, which she said she'd had borrowed from a friend in order to message me. It's only 1,500 pesos, she said, which is $25. You don't get it, do you? I said. You're just asking me for handouts all the time. I'm just constantly paying out all day. It was relentless. Just give me, give me, give me. Jenny was the same, wanting money for medication for her insect bites. wanting money for load so she could message me. It's funny how people say stay away from online dating sites as they're full of scammers. But here I was experiencing scamming in real life. Look, I don't mind treating a girl to supper. That is expected on a date. But I was quite aware of these girls' intentions from the start, which didn't sit comfortably with me. I just felt all the time that I was being used. Great, there's a rich foreigner in town. They don't visit this part of Mindanao very often. Quick, let's see how much we can fleece him for. To cap it all, no knee trembling occurred in the Royal Garden Hotel. Not in my bedroom, anyway. Ricky did come to my room, however, to ask me to buy the phone for her. She had said that she'd never met a foreigner before, had agreed to meet one guy, but got cold feet. As she looked around my hotel room, she believed he'd been staying in the same room. So figure that one out. I've learnt not to believe anything many Filipinas say.
Here at BWC, Uncle doesn't charge a subscription fee like Auntie does, but buying us a coffee would be much appreciated. Thank you.
I'd like to say that after I left Ozamiz, travelled to Iligan, Pagadian, and Zamboanga, that dating in Mindanao got better. But sadly, not really. Does Mindanao have potential? Absolutely. If you have plenty of time and patience. Sure, I'm an advocate for internet dating and don't dismiss it like many people do. I was in this part of Mindanao for a month this time, but staying in most cities for only 4 or 5 days and moving between places quickly. Filipinas were only responding to my messages once I'd already left that city, which was frustrating. Online in the smaller cities, you're fishing in a much smaller pond. But the potential to find a Filipina whilst going about your day in Mindanao is very strong. I was getting quite a lot of attention on the streets, far more attention than I get on most days in the well-trodden bigger cities like Cebu or Manila, where I'm now invisible. It only really occurred to me late on in my Mindanao trip that if I was looking for a date or girlfriend, on my first day in that town or city, I should go to the malls or areas where you'd find Filipinas working or visit restaurants in college areas. A Filipina who actually works for a living is more appealing in my mind, as she has a better outlook on life and money. I did have a couple of other dates in Mindanao. On my last night in Zamboanga, I went for supper with Jen, who I'd met on Pina Love. She worked in a print shop, earning 240 pesos a day for a 7-hour shift, which works out at 35 pesos an hour, which is 60 American cents an hour. She was 27, without children, strangely enough. I was the first foreigner she'd met up with, as she'd been in a relationship with a Filipino for the previous 8 years. But Jen wanted serious, so nothing was going to happen between us. After we'd eaten, Jen was dropping me off at my hotel in a trike on her way back to her boarding house, and I handed her 250 pesos for her fares that night, more than what she earned in a day. Jen didn't want to take it. "I'm not like that," she said. "I know you're not. That's why I'm giving it to you," I said. So I need to emphasise that not all Mindanao Filipinas are like the two money-grabbing Ozamiz girls.
If you enjoy this channel's content, kindly keep Uncle content by sharing this video with your friends. Thank you.
On my first trip in Mindanao a year earlier, visiting CDO, I dine at Carinderia's near a huge department store where many staff took their lunch. I didn't go to CDO this time. I met a lovely South American guy who lived in a really small town called Oroquieta with his Filipino wife, who advised me to go to Iligan City instead, as he said STDs are rife in CDO. Mindanao is home to some absolute beauties. In my mind, the most beautiful Filipinas in the Philippines are in Mindanao. But many will only date to marry at 20 years of age, which might suit many of you wanting to settle down with a Mindanao lady. But older foreigners seeking a temporary exchange is harder. Sure, many studs out there will boast that it happened pretty easily for them. You just need to do a lot of legwork and return to the same environment for them to see you're a regular there. If I spent more time in each of these towns or cities, I'd undoubtedly have a more positive experience, he says, positively.
Just a quick reminder to please click the thumbs up button if you liked the video, or thumbs down button if you didn't. Obviously. Thank you. You've been watching Uncle, the man from Bigg World Cinema. Please like, subscribe and share with your friends.